Good morning from wherever you are in South Africa. Apologies for disturbing your regular broadcasting schedule. Sure, by now, since the month has started, you've been used to more feminine voices, joining you during this time. But we're doing things differently this time. My name is Salailo. I'll be joining you from now until 1. And this is going to be a really interesting time that I'll be spending with you. We're going to be having an educational segment and an educational segment on one of the topics that mainstream media doesn't cover that much, and I think most of you at home might not know much of, particularly. Now, as you know, a lot of conscience is being raised about what's happening across the world, what's happening international relations, the countries that South Africa is dealing with, as we've seen in the last BRICS summit. So a lot of countries making their way to their shores. And one of those countries was the Western Sahara. And I'm going to be talking to Magdalene Moonsamy. She's an admitted attorney of the High Court, human rights activist, and an activist of the Western Sahara region, a region that is highly contested, a region that a lot of people don't know about, and why you should care about it, why you should care about Western Sahara, and what does it mean for you and me as people of the continent of Africa. I know Magdalene is with me. Good morning, Magdalene. How are you?
Good morning. I'm well and yourself. Thank you.
I'm
Yes.
I'm I'm well. Thank you so much for giving us your time. I think let's just jump right into it. Western Sahara. What do we need to know about it? For someone who hasn't heard about Western Sahara, hasn't even doesn't even know where on the world map it is. What can you tell them? What can you tell our viewers and myself, just on a little educational piece of what we need to know about Western Sahara?
Thanks so much. I think the most important thing is to understand the similarities of colonization and the patterns of colonization and how colonizers then exploit territory. So the first is the fact that the Western Sahara is in the northern part of Africa. Um, it borders from the northwest of Africa. If you go up on the map, you'll see there's Mauritania and there's Morocco, and then you will see it's obviously the largest desert in the world, the Sahara Desert. And over the years, the conflict has been over mineral resources in the Western Sahara and the occupation, illegal occupation by Morocco
Mm,
of the Western Sahara. The country is currently at war with Morocco. The United Nations has sat on the matter, not only on the matter in the special committees, but also in the General Assembly. And they have appointed a special envoy to go in and ask and insist that a referendum is called. The issue is that from the last special envoy to the current, despite the visits and despite the interventions, Morocco refuses to go to a referendum. Now, what you have is occupied territories and unoccupied territories. So, the occupied territories in the Western Sahara are occupied by Morocco. Now, if you had to picture Gaza, where it is blocked out completely from the rest of the world, that is what the occupied territories are like. It is blocked out. People have not interfaced, interacted 30, 40, 50 years with members of their families who are in the occupied territories. So the United Nations has put in a system of reintegration for families. So there's a list where families they'll have to be on the waiting list in order for them to go to visit their parents or their children after 30 or 40 years. So you have the same situation as you have in Palestine with Gaza. Or I'm using Gaza as an example
mm,
because of lack of access to humanitarian aid. So currently, the situation of war and occupation is causing a restriction on humanitarian aid. And this is now creating and deepening the crisis. I mean, the country does not want to be at war. But this war began, if you will recall, 2020, um, as a result of the exhaustion of the Sahrawi people not wanting its mineral resources to be sold without, because there is international case law, especially with the European courts, South African courts, and courts in Panama, Canada, where the stolen resources that were taken from these places were then taken by truck uh, to obviously the ports, and then they were captured by our port security here, and we then need to return. So there are international agreements that refuse the Western Sahara from Morocco from stealing or trading over the Western Sahara mineral resources.
mm,
A scope of the land is that it's a desert, so it's very dry and obviously very hot. Currently, the temperatures in the Western Sahara are between 53 and 55 degrees. But the United Nations and the World Health Organization do not release the exact statistics because it means that they would then have to declare it a humanitarian crisis and provide humanitarian aid. Now, what is also, trying to understand the dynamics of the Western Sahara is not difficult because there is a wall, um, one of the longest walls in the world, that have been built by Morocco, preventing Sahrawi people from going into their own territory. This is why you have the two occupied and the unoccupied territories. And this wall and the nearing vicinity of that part of the desert is infested with landmines. So, one is demining those landmines, but another is also the issue of the fact that in that wall that was built by Morocco itself, there is a hole in the wall in the area of Al Galgarath. And this is where and how the war started this second time around. The trucks would pass through that hole in the wall in order to get to the ports. And the Polisario decided, Polisario is the political party of the Sahrawi Arab Democratic Republic. They then decided that they were going to stop the trucks.
mm,
And as a result of them saying enough is enough, the theft is enough. So we have now what we can refer to as a war that has broken out, which is highly funded by the United States and Israel. This is why we have Israel's policy on supporting the occupation of the Western Sahara by Morocco, because it's a state of occupation. It's no different from the Palestinian struggle.
mm,
Um, But the impact of all of these factors, where there is obviously unoccupied territories, the impact of this on children, whether it's South Sudan, Palestine, the respect for life is absent in the mind of the occupier and in the process of occupation. And hence, the Sahrawis are seen as lesser than human beings by Morocco.
Mm.
Now, the irony about it is the fact that Morocco, its unemployment rate is phenomenally high. Yes, you might have your tourists, your Casablanca and your Marrakesh, the usual, like we would have, people coming to visit the Cape Towns and there's those parts of the country which are known to be, a certain way. But the reality is that there's going to be very soon an uprising in Morocco against the king because of the conditions of the people, not because of the perception of the outside world. We attended the BRICS summit, and it was an almost impossibility because BRICS is run by consensus. And BRICS then refused to, they came to a stalemate because they said Morocco are not Western Sahara, and we said, no way. The Western Sahara is recognized as a state in the African Union, in the Constitutive Act of the African Union. It has ratified and been part of the African Union.
I want to jump on that part, Magdalene, if you can allow me, about the response of the international community when it comes to the Western Sahara. Morocco's occupation of Western Sahara. You have as you mentioned that Western Sahara is a member of the African Union, but you also have Morocco, which was admitted in the AU in 2017 under the chairpersonship of Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma, a South African. So it becomes a bit confusing where you would have a South African state which is speaking so passionately against the occupation of the people of Western Sahara, but then you had Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma as the chairwoman of the AU back in 2017, being part of the admission of Morocco into the AU. The international community, are they playing the correct role in this debacle, or it's just lip service like we see with what's happening with Israel and the occupation of Palestine, the apartheid Israel, I should mention. So maybe we're going to take a quick break, and then after that, maybe we can talk about the international community, the effectiveness of the African Union, and if are we playing lip service, or is Morocco being isolated as it should, the way we're calling for Israel to be isolated by the international community. So we're going to take a quick break, and then we're gonna speak on that a bit.
Salam Media.
Shimmer, sparkle, captivate. Nothing less than a masterpiece. Droplets of gold inspires precious design. Platinum bursts with intricate freshness, and every pure diamond becomes more than just a girl's best friend. Voda Gold Gem Jewelers, where timeless dreams become a reality. Come to us. We tailor-make designer gold, platinum, and diamond jewelry. Trade in or remodel your old gold. Clad yourself with classy name-branded watches. We offer insurance valuation and freezer card calculation. Visit us at 534 Ridge Road, Overport, or call 031 208 9142. Voda Gold Gem Jewelers, manufacturers of fine gold and diamond jewelry.
There's no smell that takes me back to the comfort of my childhood than the smell of black seed oil being applied by my nanny. Now I'm using tib black seed in my own home to soothe sniffles and coughs, to help with digestion and immunity, and of course, as part of my beauty routine. After all these years, I've come to appreciate the wisdom in finding comfort and shifa in trusted treatments like tib black seed. You can find tib black seed at all leading pharmacies or find out more at blackseed.co.za.
They say breakfast is the most important meal of the day, yet many children go to school hungry because of poverty. Penny Appeal South Africa's Breakfast Club aims to get a warm, hearty meal to underprivileged children so they can spend their day prospering in their schoolwork. Help feed a needy learner for only 5 Rand a day, or 150 Rand a month. Or visit our website www.pennyappeal.org.za or call 031 1100 573 to find out how you can donate. Penny Appeal South Africa. Small change, big difference. When the perfect blend of stylish decor, exquisite halal cuisine, and warm hospitality come together, it could only mean Albeit Lodge, your true home away from home. Albeit is the ideal heaven for families, business people, and tourists with its 4-star family rooms and other luxurious facilities. Conveniently situated close to Port Elizabeth Airport, the beach, and other amenities, your stay will be truly unforgettable, as you'll be taking home lasting memories of the warm hospitality, the serenity and tranquility that Albeit has to offer. For reservations, call 041 583 6415 or visit www.albeitlodge.co.za.
Rejuvenating media day by day. This is Salam Media.
Welcome back. Thank you so much for joining us. We're having a really interesting, in-depth conversation with Magdalene Moonsamy, activist, attorney. She's breaking down Western Sahara for us, the occupation by Morocco on the Western Sahara people, what it means, why you should care, and how us as South Africans are interacting with them. Before we went on that break, I spoke a bit about the AU and how seemingly it seems Morocco has so much leverage on the AU, which they were not a part of since 2017, that it's so difficult to have real isolation, maybe sanctions, even if it's possible. I mean, you can't in 2023 still have a colony in the continent of Africa after the history that the continent has had. So maybe we can touch on that a bit. The question that I asked before we went on the break, the AU and South Africa's response to the occupation. Are we paying lip service, or is real action being taken?
Action is always being taken. I think the main issue at play is, education and making sure that people are educated. I mean, we've been colonized. We came from an era where, we were like apartheid Israel. We were under such severe apartheid laws. And we were able to gain our freedom and live and our rights as human beings. Now, the issue of the admission of Morocco into the AU under the tenure of Mama Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma was the power of the euro and dollar patronage. Remember that France is a huge supporter of Morocco. Even though Spain was the political administrator during the period of time after the war that took place in the 40s, after the Green March, you have France, very influential in Africa. Now, to place things into perspective, let's consider what is happening in Niger, Burkina Faso, Gabon, etc., French-speaking countries, kicking France out. Those French-speaking countries were the bloc, the Francophone bloc, that brought Morocco in to the AU. Remember, Morocco had withdrew itself from the OAU. And then it didn't understand the implications of acknowledgement of sovereignty under Article 3 and 4 of the Constitutive Act of the AU. And that sovereignty was awarded to Western Sahara as a signatory to the Constitutive Act. So when it decided to change its mind, it didn't just make an entry, a surprise entry, or there wasn't a fight about it. Morocco uses money as a means, and it is a known fact, to buy its way into the global environment. So this is what has happened with the AU, and the issue is the support for the Western Sahara is extensive. The global growing support is also becoming very, very intensive. The BRICS then decided that they would invite both Morocco and the Sahara Arab Democratic Republic. And did you not see the statement that the foreign minister of Morocco released against South Africa? They had said that South Africa is exceptionally hostile to Morocco, and hence they will not attend the BRICS summit, because their expectation was to attend and the Western Sahara would not be allowed to attend. And they were allowed to attend. Now, as a result of that, the additional 6 that were added to BRICS, as opposed to taking in Algeria, Ethiopia was taken in. Look, you win some, you lose some. However, the international community demonstrated with India and with Brazil. Well, Brazil was not the political party of Brazil, but was the Workers' Party that Morocco managed to get its clenches on. And get Brazil then, and it became by consensus to say, okay, we don't want the presence of Western Sahara. And eventually, they were invited. So it was a loss. It was by consensus. No, we don't have a problem. What would be the impact? What would be the effect? And what we know is that when you're speaking about the international community, you can't see Africa as a united Africa, because Africa is divided by the colonizer, whether it is the Portuguese, or whether it is the French, or the English, or the Dutch. Like you have a situation in Cameroon, you have to be able to be conscious of the reality that the international community is swayed. What is happening currently in the west of Africa is going to have effects, rollover effects into the continent, especially when you have a situation of coup d'etats. But what is important in that understanding is that when countries like France and Canada, for example, have been kicked out, and like now they don't want the French ambassador in a French embassy in Burkina Faso or Niger. It is striking that Africa wants to be able to trade independently, have the ability to utilize its resources for itself, and self create its economy. And this is what we've been speaking about over the years. How do we have a self sufficient economy without investor interest? Now, here's the issue on the de dollarization. The de dollarization will then give regional and states the ability to strengthen their currency. But what will then be the alternative? China has been proposing the yuan as the alternative currency. In spite of the fact that it is time that the world dynamic is inevitable. The war in Europe is not something that was unexpected. NATO had its intentions, and we know this. When the missile was launched in 2000 and maybe 5 or 6 years ago, before the war officially began, there's been an intention of NATO. I mean, it's quite clear. But the implications on the flip side is what would then happen in terms of international investment. What currency would then balance? And if it is the problem with the infrastructure of Bitcoin and cryptocurrency is that it does not have an infrastructure like a currency would in a normal sense of the word. So this is why we need to understand and appreciate the importance of being able to have a free Africa, an Africa that makes decisions for itself and its own people. Morocco does not recognize the Bedouin people, and many Sahrawis are Bedouin. They move around the desert. In many instances in search for rain. Morocco does not recognize that Sahrawis are human beings. And these are not words that are being created by any figment of my imagination. This is the words of Morocco. The issue that we have is the minerals that exist in the desert. Now, you would understand what transpired in the UAE and Saudi Arabia and how it was able to grow, even though it's a desert. You're comparing trillions, 250 trillion dollars that was built out of a desert. Now, if one had to understand why the necessity for occupation, one is the phosphate, fossil fuels, the fisheries, gas, the energy, the water reserves. In as much as we have a depleting water reserve in the world currently, the Western Sahara, as desert as it is, has one of the greatest water reserves in the world. So if you had to go into the understanding of the occupation, you would then understand, I'm under the weather, you would then understand why the international interest to support Morocco because of the fisheries and because of the phosphate, etc., is European. And the European Union and European Parliament itself has made proclamation against Morocco's occupation. But for those few who now have decided that no, they're not going to participate in that kind of activities, because Morocco is, if you see the bombing, if you go to watch some of the videos on YouTube, for example, the bombings that are happening in the occupied territories, the killings, the execution, the abuse of women and children and human beings, unrepresented political prisoners, prisoners without reason for detention, people going on hunger strike just to ask to be allowed. If you remember the period when Mahmoud Nawaja in Palestine was arrested at 2 a.m. in the morning for no reason and held in a prison where no one was allowed to represent him. He is the Secretary General for BDS. It became an international crisis. And what we are doing now is we escalating the issue of the law, international law, with a group of Spanish and international judges and myself. We are now escalating the process towards going to the International Criminal Court to hold responsible the crimes against humanitarian crimes committed by Morocco. So, yes.
I want us to take another quick break, but you're breaking it down so nicely. When we come back, I want us to touch on BRICS. There was the Western Sahara delegation that came. You were with them. Maybe you can just break down for us why they came to the summit. I know they were invited alongside Morocco, and also what do they see coming out of BRICS in terms of helping them and them being recognized by the rest of the international community. So maybe you were inside, those private discussions. Maybe just let us in a bit about, what were the outcomes? What did the other world leaders think about Western Sahara, and what kind of help will they be offering going forward? But for now, we're going to take a quick break, and then we'll touch on that when we come back.
Spread warmth this winter with Africa Muslims Agency's Winter Warmth campaign. Sayyidina Umar al-Khattab radiallahu anhu would advise his companions, winter, which is an enemy, has come, so prepare for it with wool, leather socks and socks. Let us help the thousands of South Africans without adequate clothing or shelter to prepare for the harsh winter months by providing them with blankets for 150 Rand and winter warmth packs for 300 Rand. Spread warmth with Africa Muslims Agency. Call AMA on 011-834-8685 or donate online at africamuslimsagency.co.za. Africa Muslims Agency. Empowering, educating, inspiring.
Discover the Africa of your dreams and surround yourself with her spectacular beauty. Relax beneath her serene sunsets and explore wildlife at its natural best. It's where the pride of Africa comes together. The Kwantu Private Game Reserve. Get to know the Big Five or cruise on an elephant safari game drive. Interact with lion and tiger cubs and enjoy world-class halal cuisine while we pamper you during your 5-star stay. Indulge in the true African experience. For reservations, call now on 042-203-1400 or visit kwantu.co.za. The Kwantu Private Game Reserve, the place of gathering.
When you give water, you're reaching out to drought-affected areas, bringing them to life. Fresh water to drink, to clean, and to grow. That's the power of water. Donate now to Islamic Relief.
At Sentio, our Invest for Good philosophy is based on a genuine desire to use our investment skills for the benefit of broader society by investing responsibly, giving charitably, and developing talent that will transform the investment industry. Visit www.sentio-capital.com for more information about our Sharia investment products and start saving with us today. Sentio Capital. Invest for good. Sentio Capital Management is an authorized financial services provider.
1 year ago, our lives were forever changed when we met the Syrian and Palestinian refugee children from Africa Muslims Agency's Amman School in Lebanon.
I love you, South Africa. I will miss you, South Africa. I'm so happy to see you all.
The One Child, One Dream Tour. Join AMA for a fundraising dinner and exhibition on the 9th of September at the Orient Islamic School Hall in Durban as we share the impact that your donations have made, taking these beautiful children one step closer to achieving their dreams. Get your tickets now. Contact 083-843-2562 or follow Amma on social media.
You know, it's a wonder how kids get anything done these days. With all the distractions, when do they even get time to study? As a mother, all I can really do is make sure they have all they need to perform at their best. That's why I choose to include Sunfoil, triple refined pure sunflower oil with every meal I make. Naturally cholesterol-free and approved by the Heart and Stroke Foundation as part of a balanced eating plan. So whether I'm cooking, frying or baking, I know every dish will be a wholesome one. Sunfoil, now we're cooking.
Breaking stereotypes, moving boundaries, joining hands. Salam Media. Humanity sets the agenda.
Welcome back, and thank you so much for joining us. We're still having an in-depth breakdown and analysis of the situation in Western Sahara, and I'm still with Magdalene Moonsamy. She's an attorney, she's an activist of the Sahrawi people, and she's given us so much nuggets of information about this part of Africa, the last colony of Africa, as it were. Before we went on the break, Magdalene, you were part of the BRICS delegation alongside the Sahrawi people. You guys came to South Africa. There were discussions behind doors. What can you let us into? What can you let us know? What can you tell us about why the Sahrawi delegation came to South Africa and what they got when they left?
I have to say that was a huge achievement, because the Western Sahara is recognized by BRICS as an independent state, which is something that is very significant. And the fact that there was a delegation with the president, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, and the ambassadors, etc., it was a very significant milestone for the Sahrawi people. But also the reception with which the Sahrawi delegation was received was very warm and very welcoming, which indicates that really the world, and you know how urgently France wanted to get membership in BRICS when it added this +6. It was rejected. So the self-isolation, I think, of what is transpiring in terms of those who don't see the bigger picture of the Western Sahara is going to be to the detriment. Because I was listening to your advertisements, and what strikes out for me is when I think about water and trying to find ways of getting water, clean water, drinkable water. And if we had the kind of engineers, if we had the kind of support in the Western Sahara, people would have water to drink that's not, it doesn't have to go through a desaltification process, because the water is really salty that is found. So there has to dry out the salt and then extract the water, but there's still remaining salt, and that salt is excessive. And there's a simple bottle that I found when I attended some activity with a filter on the top, which is used by special ops people even, that no matter what water you put there, 1,000 liters can be drank out of one bottle with that filter. So it purifies the water. And what I want to do is start a drive right now to acquire the more bottles for it to be taken to the camps. But the reception of the BRICS, and I'm saying this because it's something like I spent a time in Palestine, and I think that we've spoken about this before. And I've seen the conditions of the Palestinian people. It is an underwritten freedom. Even though there is isolation, but there's freedom. If you go into Ramallah, it's like it's a city. There's development, good development, positive development. There's water. It's rich in fruit. I'm not sure if you've heard of now, there's the olive oil crisis in the Middle East. But the people are able to generate an income. They are able to function, even though it is a war zone, if you want to refer to it as such. People are able to go and freely move around in Ramallah, in the West Bank. But when you look at the conditions of the Sahrawi people, water is a war in itself, not to have access to water frequently, or food frequently. So we need to start looking at, the struggles are very similar. It's just that Morocco rejects media presence, which is why you have a more understood issue in Palestine than you do of the Western Sahara, because media, CNN was kicked out by the king when the protests and the beatings and what was transpiring in Gaza and the shootings, etc., were happening. Media is not allowed. So that's where we have a fundamental issue in terms of the education aspect. And it's not just Western Sahara that we do activism for. It's people in Kashmir. Look at what is happening in Pakistan at the moment. I mean, a whole judge had to run away with his family after imprisoning Imran Khan. And then another judge comes after he suspended the sentence to come and charge him for something else. The situation that's happening in Kashmir, the deaths of children, the rapes in Kashmir, it's unfathomable. So when we take the question of BRICS and the international community's acceptance and warm welcome of the Western Sahara, we have to say that it was indeed an opportunity to speak to the president, to speak. I think that you did have an interview, though, with the foreign minister when we were here for the BRICS political parties meeting. And Polisario was invited there as well. So I think that definitely in terms of gaining an understanding, it really is as simple as somebody coming into your house and occupying it and kicking you out.
Mm.
That's what it
I,
is.
I want to just jump in there. Came across an article. I'm not sure how true it is. From the North Africa Post, and it speaks of quite the opposite of what you're telling me. It
Mm.
speaks of the backing of Morocco by BRICS leaders, and how that led a fatal blow to Algeria, ultimately not being accepted to the expansion of BRICS. How true is this? You were there. You can tell us from firsthand, experience. Was it positive? Were the leaders unequivocal about their support of Western Sahara and supporting its cause to emancipate itself from Morocco?
Look, let me read you the statement of, well, not the full statement. I'll just read you the article. Let me see if I can find it. Sorry, let me just have a look here. Where BRICS pronounced itself on the Western Sahara issue. I will just, sorry, give me a moment. Let me find it. Oh dear. Okay. No, that's the movement.
Mm-hmm.
Where they are, hold on, let me just check here. Oh dear. Sorry. Where they pronounce on it's not a it's not something that is as strongly worded as one would have wanted, but
Mm-hmm.
it declares its support for the Western Sahara. It openly declares, I'm sorry, but I can't do this whilst I am. Um, uh, it is the first time that this has happened, and the only thing is introducing the aspect of the Western Sahara into the BRICS issue had to first come after BRICS had found its own feet.
Mm-hmm.
You see? So it is not something that was because of the BRICS Development Bank, the issues of now expansion and bringing in other further members. How will that happen? The issue of consensus now in BRICS will have to change. But you read in the New Africa Post and you say that the perception, Moroccan propaganda is absolutely irresponsible to the extent of being illegal, because that is the perception that is created after they felt egg in the face that how dare South Africa invite the Western Sahara.
Mm-hmm.
Many
And also when
people
I
had many countries pronounced openly on their support for the Western Sahara. It was
Mm,
no secret. The issue is that with Algeria, yes, and I mentioned that Algeria wanted membership, and it was a misnomer that it went to Addis because Algeria has more to offer than a divided Addis. But it's fine. We don't hold anything against Addis either because Addis is the headquarters of the AU.
mm,
Um, so no, we've dismissed so many kinds of propaganda and immorality of Morocco, to the extent that Morocco doesn't even feature. I don't know how many times you and others have tried to call Morocco into a conversation with one of us. And we've sat up till late hours at night waiting for Morocco to answer the phone. They will allege and they will then say, okay, I am going to come to the party and I have these allegations, and we will be prepared to engage. We're not Sahrawi, we're South African. But the
mm,
fact that you can offer your solidarity with the Polisario and with the Western Sahara makes you an enemy.
Mhm.
So
No.
Morocco has not just created it's created its enemies to the extent that it has to propagate and propaganda itself around, including patronage. That is how Morocco survives. The
Mm.
patronage and the propaganda.
Yeah, no,
I
definitely.
mean,
We have dealt with the Moroccan embassy also, and yeah, I can definitely tell you that the hostility is real. The hostility is true. But I think what's really important, especially when you talk about countries that are under occupation or countries that are going through natural disasters and war and a lot of political instability, is when you want people to understand and sympathize and offer support, solidarity, and activism, is to tell the lived stories of people. We connect more with each other than we do with political statements. And if there's one thing I want us to touch on, we're going to go on a break after this. Is something that caught my eye is temperature fixing. This is something I've never heard of before. Maybe if you have an idea, you can just break it down to us how Morocco is deliberately temperature fixing the Western Sahara region so that aid doesn't come in. And also, maybe paint a picture for us. You've been there. What does it look like? What does the streets of Western Sahara look like? And how are particularly women and children, affected by this, so that it gets to people's heads and hearts to know that they're actual human beings that live there. It's not a isolated desert area that's just been fought over because of whatever minerals are there, but they're actual human beings, their families and their kids, and most importantly, they're women and children. So when we get back from the break, we touch on those two subjects: the temperature fixing, what is that, and number two, paint a picture for us, Western Sahara, what does it look like? I don't think we've seen real pictures on the news, mainstream media. I think maybe that's credit also to the Moroccan, government, about how they were so deliberate in cutting them off from the rest of the world that you can't even close your eyes and imagine what a Western Sahara looked like. So we're going to take a quick break, and then when we get back, we want to touch on those two subjects.
The Turkey-Syria earthquake is among the deadliest earthquakes of the last century. Thousands have lost their lives, and large areas and cities and towns in southern Turkey and northern Syria have turned to rubble, leaving huge numbers of residents with very little or nothing at all. Al Imdad Foundation's emergency relief team is on the ground providing life-saving aid. The people of Turkey and Syria desperately need your support. Donate online at alimdad.com or call 0861 786 243 for more information.
Online schooling? Why not? Kurtuba Online Academy is the leading global online Islamic school from grade R to matric, offering South African caps and international syllabus. And it doesn't stop there. We also offer online madrasa for every grade. For more information, visit www.kurtubaonline.co.za. Kurtuba Online Academy, the leading global online Islamic school.
They say breakfast is the most important meal of the day, yet many children go to school hungry because of poverty. Penny Appeal South Africa's Breakfast Club aims to get a warm, hearty meal to underprivileged children so they can spend their day prospering in their schoolwork. Help feed a needy learner for only 5 Rand a day, or 150 Rand a month. Or visit our website www.pennyappeal.org.za or call 031 1100 573 to find out how you can donate. Penny Appeal South Africa. Small change, big difference.
What makes Randery Jewelers the optimum place for your memorable gift? Is it our range of exclusive, high-end, luxurious jewellery? Or is it our master craftsmanship of all your bespoke jewellery needs? We believe it's because at Randall Jewelers, we know just how to make your special moments last forever. Whether it's for a wedding, anniversary, or just a simple gift to show your love, trust Randery Jewelers to make it special. www.randerejewelers.com. Make your moments last forever with Randery Jewelers, the family name you can trust.
Listen to something fresh. Listen to Salam Media, your humanitarian broadcaster.
Welcome back. Thank you so much for joining us. We're coming to the latter part of our conversation with Magdalene Moonsamy. She's an admitted attorney of the High Court, a human rights activist, and she's breaking down Western Sahara for us. In layman's terms, that's what I've been enjoying about this conversation is that you're breaking it down so easily that an everyday man and woman on the street will be able to understand. Before we went on the break, we were talking about we're going to discuss the last two issues and temperature fixing. This is a phrase that I've just stumbled across, and I was like, what does it mean? How do you fix temperature? When we know about match fixing here in South Africa, temperature fixing, what is it? How can you explain it to us, and how is Morocco using it to further oppress the people of Western Sahara?
I think we need to understand within the context of climate change is that the northern part, and this is not my irresponsible thinking, it's factual, scientific. The northern parts of the northern hemisphere, in actual fact, will be experiencing more increased. I mean, what is currently happening with the heat waves that's going on in Spain and in Europe, etc. Extended summers and ghastly weathers. I mean, extremely high temperatures. Now, when you have those temperatures in your developed countries, then you can manage if you have the resources, the access to water and to etc. Basic bare essentials. However, if you had to put the true reflection of the temperatures in the Western Sahara on record, the United Nations and the World Health Organization have to declare that a humanitarian crisis. And Morocco cannot afford that, because that would mean that the world's attention would go to the Western Sahara in terms of the dispensing and the distribution of humanitarian aid. And so it has then decided to reduce the real temperatures. I was with the minister and the president, and they were saying now in the camps, in the morning, they wake up to 55 degrees, to 53 degrees. The coolest it can get is maybe 53 degrees or 50 degrees. And that is already a breach in terms of the role of the World Health Organization. So one has to then really look closely into the extent to which the Western Sahara is not, remember, in terms, if you go to CNN or you go to BBC, you're not going to see a temperature on the news reports of the Western Sahara. And then to talk about the actual situation in the camps. The Western Sahara is a desert. And the homes of the people are made of sand, in most instances. Well, it's just sand. When you say the roads, the streets of... there are streets in part of Tindouf, which is part of Algeria. But beyond that, it's not possible. Infrastructure is... there is a developing Tindouf, which is... and those unoccupied territories close to Tindouf is... it's a desert. If the people are not living in tents, then they live in houses made of sand. Flooring is quite rare, and depending on which territory or which daria you are in, daria is like a region, how you would call a region, okay? And so you have a carpet on the floor, and there's always sand. But it's one of the places that you remain the cleanest person ever. I cannot explain that. The women, it's phenomenal society in terms of the women take over the political administration when men go to war, and the women go to war. And if you go into a region like Tifariti, there are military camps for women. And it has been every time I'm there, which is very frequent in the year. I think the most amazing thing is a people that we as South African can identify with. You know, South Africans don't have time to hold on to what has happened yesterday because there's just too much to deal with today. And we've built a tenacity as a people, a resilience as a people, because we've been through so much of hardship. I mean, in Johannesburg, I don't know what the death toll, the last time I checked on the death toll on the fire in the CBD was 73. And it's after this fire has been going on since last night that politicians have arrived on the scene now. And the people of the Sahrawi people are the happiest people because they understand, and there's solidarity, unity of purpose. When it is their Freedom Day, you see every Sahrawi child, dog, whatever it is, supporting the Polisario. The discipline of the society is unbelievable. Women are respected to the extent where, yes, they would cook, but a man would serve the food and then he would wash it. He would wash those dishes. The freedom of children being able to play in the desert sand. And, you know, we always think now with crime in South Africa, etc., we didn't have, you know, some of our freedoms are taken away. But the freedom of being able to stand outside and know that apart from if there's an airstrike or something of that nature, then it would be different. But it's people who understand that their bread is the freedom of their people. Sahrawis make their own bread in the sand. It's the most delicious bread that you would ever have. We call it a French loaf or something like that, but it's actually a baguette. And to be able to make bread or rice or hummus or couscous and eat that with camel's milk or whatever, it's not an issue about what you eat. The issue is the unity of purpose of women, of children, and every single Sahrawi who is conscious of the conditions inside and outside the camps. Remember, a lot of Sahrawis are refugees in Spain. And Spain is now creating turmoil insofar as starting to restrict, because the children who are the conditions, let me give you a slight example. Doctors Without Borders, run by Dr. Ayashi, you have a situation, formally, sorry, where women have to give birth on the side of the street and cut an umbilical cord with a stone because the medical facilities are very minimal. The clinics are basic. So Doctors Without Borders have to provide as much care as possible. When medical care is sought, people have to go to Spain or wherever else to seek medical care because the access is minimum. Electricity is minimum. But the joy of the household, it's very unusual to find, and the solidarity of the woman in the Western Sahara is phenomenal. If one is ill, the remaining of the community pull in, take care of the kids, take care of the woman until she's restored, because people do understand the issue of medication being under-resourced and healthcare being under-resourced. So, however, in all of that is this impeccable joy. And what can you ask for? Don't have water, but still fight for your freedom. I think that is the most amazing quality of the Sahrawi people that keeps me so driven in my own personal life, because I wouldn't be me without them. And the lessons that I've learned from what is it that you need in order to survive? Is it really necessary? Can you do it without it? And I sincerely believe that there are many opportunities. I'm not sure if you're aware that Air Algeria has started flying directly from Johannesburg to Algeria. It launched its first flight, was it the 21st of August or the 19th? I'm not, but I did invite Salam Media to come to the launch. And people will then have the opportunity. We have festivals in the desert, music festivals, marathons. There's this Sahrawi marathon where people come from all over the world and run in extreme temperatures or sleep in the desert and listen to music. I mean, there's film festivals. Javier Bardem is an activist of the Western Sahara, and he did a documentary on the Western Sahara. But it's the idea of the desert that is so pure. You know, someone imagines the desert and thinks, oh man, it's just sand. No, it's not. It's not just sand. The power of the sand, the understanding of being one with the earth, is something that I think the third or developed world has started to demonetize. And I think one has to appreciate that the conditions under which the Sahrawi people live, they do it with a smile, as painful as it is. You know, I earlier spoke of the integration program, and one of my very closest brothers got to see his mother for the first time in 35 years. And I've never seen a grown man cry so much for so long after returning, just to have his mother touch him, touch his face and feed him and see his mom. And that's inhumane. It's the same thing that's happening in Palestine when the walls are being built. That separates homes and schools and destroys lives. But to the extent that when one wants to understand the issues of women, the women of the Polisario are very, very determined, very tenacious, and extremely prepared for any circumstance. They understand that their husbands, the fathers of their children, have to go to war or have to go out of the country. And that is how they live, knowing their families. It's similar to the situation where families were separated in South Africa because of migrant labor.
Yeah, I was about to, tell you just how good of a job you've done in painting that picture of the Sarahawi people, and I can understand why, as a South African, you'd be so drawn to them, and how they're so drawn to us also, because there are a lot of similarities. I mean, you spoke about a sense of community. I'm thinking that's Ubuntu. I am because you are. How the women would come together and help someone who's in need or who's sick, and also how women are taking over, some of the administration and the work because the men are out to war. Same situation that happened here in South Africa. Migrant labor. You had women, who were, heads of households that had to raise the kids and do it all alone. But there was that understanding that it was for a bigger cause. It was for a bigger goal. Before I let you go, but then it makes sense now. They see so much of themselves in us, and I now see so much of us in them. So it makes sense why they would look to South Africa, to get the assistance. And you mentioned that South Africa is responding well, so that's good to know. But lastly, before
But
before I
also
let you, yeah.
remember, sorry, Mr.
Yeah.
Lelo, also remember that the Sahrawi, the Polisario,
Hmm.
supported us. Do you know that they captured apartheid vehicles and took it? They have a museum with one of our mellow yellows or tankers in the desert. They came in and fought our struggle. They provided us with the means. So it is not something that we can negligently not return the favor. It's impossible. They sacrificed their lives. I mean, O.R. Tambo reached out to people in the deserts for help who don't have access to food, but have access and the tenacity to send soldiers, give up their husbands and their families to train our soldiers, to train our people to be able to fight apartheid back, as Algeria did. So, and Cuba. So I do believe that it is more than the picture. There's so many, there's so much alignment in terms of the struggle, the killings, and the brutalities that one has to consider it in its entirety, not not being a political issue. It's a social issue. It's a cultural issue. And now that Air Algeria is flying, sorry, I'm now advertising for Air Algeria. Now that Air Algeria is flying, it becomes so accessible for people to be able to go and look at the conditions of the people who live in Tindufa. That's as far as they would be able to get, or be able to get in, for these kind of activities. And it's actually, the prices are very cheap, I think. It's $400 for a return flight to Algiers and back. So I gives also the opportunity of going into that part of Africa that is so under considered, for the purposes of one, self-education, understanding, the liberation of the continent started in the north and ended in the south. And you know what significance South Africa has to the continent and to the world, should we lose our democracy? Should we lose our democracy? It will have a rollover effect. We cannot allow to lose our democracy. And we take our democracy for granted. And this is why the Sahrawis are not afraid to go to a referendum, because they know both in the occupied and the unoccupied territories, they will overwhelmingly secure their independence. And that's what the people want. That's why there's war over a referendum. And we cannot go back into a situation ourselves when the world is depending on us as South Africans. Go back. And we must never forget our history. If we had to talk about the history from a philosophical point of view of the colonization and the interpretation of Morocco's forced occupation over the Western Sahara, that would be very intricate, and it would take away the realities of what we face. But indeed, we want people to join our solidarity movement. We have
I want to touch on that a bit. We have a blueprint of Palestine. We know what to do to raise consciousness when it comes to the issues of Palestine and what's happening there. I don't think the blueprint will necessarily work on Western Sahara. You mentioned the blockade on media. A lot of people don't even know that this is a country that exists, and because it's hardly on the news, no one knows about it. But from an activist point of view, how can a media like ourselves and South Africans and people that are in the humanitarian space, activists of whatever cause, try and educate and conscientize people about what's happening in Western Sahara and who are the Sahrawi people and why should we care?
Okay, I think the one thing is that we must appreciate Salam Media for always giving the opportunity for us to speak on the issue, because it is one of the more progressive and understand that even though they do want to understand what is the point of view of Morocco, we've never disappointed in so far as wanting to engage, because Morocco really does not have a political or a legal point of view. It's purely economic interest. But what we are doing and we are planning is to take a couple of journalists on air Algiers to the
at this point, we have to send Air Algiers an invoice. We have to invoice them at this point.
But we will get them to advertise on your programs. We're intending to do so in October. October, obviously, September, October is United Nations month. So that we after we know we're done with UN work, then we can proceed with this is the mission, to take a couple of journalists that have been supportive into the camps, and then also with cameras, obviously, and then also into the war zone, so that we can we do get videos that we can circulate of what's happening in the war zone, but not to the extent where you have live coverage. Right now, the drones that are being used by Morocco are killing people incredibly. It's just incredible. The spyware that's being used. They've invested so much. The US has invested so many billions of dollars in the war on a country that is a desert. And it is unfathomable. You have, African Lion. Now, African Lion is a project like AFRICOM, in Botswana, where they've set up training centers in the camps to train soldiers to fight against, because many Moroccan soldiers are withdrawing from, because the conditions are unbearable. They're unable to win a war against the Western Sahara. They're unable to do so. And if you have to consider what it takes, because the tenacity of the people under the weather conditions makes them stronger. So whether it is in the winter, and in the winter in the desert, it's extremely cold, or it is in the summer, the sustainability in that region where there's a lack of access to water, because that is a region that's blocked off from the ocean with the wall because of the fisheries. So we are definitely, and what can be done is to start possibly looking at how do we create an education slot, an advertisement type of space that is regularly featured, like the ones that you have in Turkey and Syria, where aid is needed. But we need to also allow people to see the conditions and to experience. If we take in cameras and we take in journalists, and you are looking at the experience, the day-to-day lives of the Sahrawi people, the war zone, the distances that must be traveled, the checkpoints. It's Palestine has checkpoints, and sometimes they're just incredibly annoying, just to make people, a drive that would be 5 minutes because of a checkpoint and the walls that have been built takes 5 hours. So you find people just parking their cars and just walking over and trying to get away through a little escape panel or something of that nature. And the checkpoints of Morocco in the Western Sahara is incredible because there's no infrastructure, but there's a lot of soldiers and there's a lot of guns. So if you're going to go into an occupied territory, you don't just have freedom of movement as a Sahrawi or even as a non-Sahrawi. It is that incredible, the isolation of people, the segregation of people from each other. So we're looking forward to that exercise with some journalists. It's going to be fun, because I might be joining or taking you around as a tour guide.
I would love that. Please come me in.
Teaching you how to navigate the desert, because people think I'm crazy that I know how to get myself around the desert. But yes, this is something that we are doing so that we can get a system. There is Sahrawi media, but it is only aired in Algiers and in some parts of it's like cable in the United States, but it's very basic, and it's Hassaniya, the language that's spoken in. So what we are doing is we are taking one of our objectives as the Solidarity Movement is, one, to get journalists involved in the Solidarity Movement, but secondly, for them to understand and experience the conditions of the Sahrawi people.
No, Magdalene, I think we're going to leave it there. Really, really enjoyed this conversation. We are going to take it forward. Salam Media is always open any day, anytime, to have the struggle of the Sahrawi people being exposed to the world and having people understand a bit more. But for now, I think it's goodbye. I know you have a bit of a flu. Take care of that, and then we'll speak again. I'm really sure. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you to the listeners. Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. Appreciate it. That was Magdalene Moonsamy, admitted acting of the High Court and activist for Western Sahara, really breaking down the last colony of Africa, Western Sahara, about why in 2023 we still have a colony in Africa, with the history that the continent has, and the amount of work that has been put in through the years by numerous people across the world and in the continent itself. But we still have Morocco occupying the people of Western Sahara. Yeah, really insightful conversation. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. If you missed it, you can catch it on our various social media pages or on our podcast. You can check it out there. But for now, thank you so much for giving us your time. And from me, Salailo, and Kolani behind the desk is goodbye.